Hey, happy, beautiful, amazing day, organo world. I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, Blue Diamond out of Houston, Texas. And today I get to share my favorite topic, health, and especially health as it is enhanced by Ganoderma. Little bit about my background. I'm a family man. I've got a beautiful wife of 33 years, three wonderful children, two beautiful granddaughters. By the way, all of whom consume multiple doses of Ganoderma every single day. I've been in clinical practice right at 30 years, and I have treated world champions from every major professional sport. By the way, I've also seen the other end of the spectrum, people where medicine had given up on them, and through enhancing their health, many of them are still thriving today. I have also taught doctors around the world over 10,000 hours of continuing education seminars, now on 6 different continents. And one principle that I always like to teach is that any program is only as good as its compliance. So here we see a very unappetizing, plate full of pills. And who knows what that blend is, but whatever it is, it's not as appealing as a delicious cup of coffee, which so much of the world drinks on a regular basis. So we're going to talk about Ganoderma. We'll start with an FDA disclaimer. We'll look at the history, the benefits, how to get it. We'll look at the organo difference. We'll focus a bit on immune enhancement, and then we'll talk and finish with healthier coffee, which is a claim that we can make. So here's what the FDA says. Any statements about any natural product, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So we cannot name any disease. We can't make any claims. However, we can say that our coffee is healthier, and we can point people to the medical literature. Fascinating history. This is the version of Mount Rushmore over in China, and these heads are over 100 meters tall. For scale, you can see people right there, and the same two emperors in the park holding Ganoderma, the herb of immortality, the herb of spiritual potency. And it was reserved for the royal family back then. So fascinating story. If someone was caught with Ganoderma, not in the royal family and not commissioned to get it, first offense, they would cut their arm off. Second offense, they would cut their head off. And I kid you not, I was lecturing at a conference one time and someone asked, what did they do the third time? I think we need to give that person a little more Ganoderma. So over 4,000 years of human use. It's called the miraculous king of herbs, and it's also categorized as a superfood. So a superfood has all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water, things essential for human health and in a quantity that makes a difference, but they also have unique components, unique properties that make it above and beyond any regular food. This website is superfoodevolution.com. And they list reishi, also known as Ganoderma, as the top superfood, and so does superfoods for superhealth.com. So we can say that Ganoderma is the consensus top superfood on the planet. And how big is the mushroom market? This research report says it's about $50 billion a year. Now that's the total mushroom market. But when we look at Ganoderma, this study says $2.5 billion a year just in the US market. So we have a huge market for this superfood, which does so many super things. So which would you guess is a better way to ingest Ganoderma? Would you like to eat this, straight as it is, appears in nature? Or would you like to have it in coffee or tea or shakes or a hot chocolate? Because that's what we've found to be the most delicious, most convenient, most compliant way to get regular doses of Ganoderma. Dean Ornish is a pretty amazing speaker and researcher. I've co-lectured at some conferences where he was also a lecturer. And here's what he said. We all know we're going to die one day, but who wants to talk about it? What's sustainable is joy, pleasure, and freedom. And he's emphasized that again in his TED Talk. He said, sustainable changes must be pleasurable. So think about that. I think if we asked 100 people, what's more pleasurable, your favorite cup of coffee or tea or hot chocolate or shake, or a handful of pills? And we see that we have that wonderful advantage. So this is a picture of PubMed.gov, and I did a search on Ganoderma lucidum. Over 1,900 peer-reviewed medical studies over 60 years period of time. And notice that over the last few decades, these studies have increased. Why? Because the world is becoming more and more interested in the power within this superfood. I did a number of searches, 60 studies on the brain, 231 on the immune system, 37 on the heart, 74 on the lungs, 50 on the lymphatic system, a dozen on testosterone, 18 on estrogen, 154 on the liver, and 39 on the kidneys. What do they all say? Basically, Ganoderma is really good for the brain. It's really good for the immune system. It's really good for the heart. It's really good for the lymphatic system. It's really good for the lungs. It's good for your hormone balance. It's good for your liver, kidneys, gut, etc. And we know that there's no known drug interaction, no known toxicity. So a wonderfully safe product. So what can we say that we can easily make the claim and not get ourselves in trouble? Well, we can say that our coffee is healthier. And by the way, compliance will tell you, oddly enough, we can't say that our coffee is healthy, but healthier, that's a good start. And we certainly are much healthier than the competition. I have taught clinical nutrition for nearly 30 years at this point, and I can tell you that the reasons that people choose to eat or drink anything are the same around the world. Number one, it's got to taste good. Number two, it has to be convenience. Number three, it has to be affordable. And number four is actually health. I always say I'd like to move health up the list a bit, but that's where the list stands. Here's a fascinating thing about organo coffee. Coffee is known to have more than 30 different acids, and our patented process by which we prepare the coffee actually minimizes the acids within coffee. So that makes the coffee healthier even without Ganoderma. But another important point is the enzymes within Ganoderma are affected by the amount of acid or pH in the solution. So when we minimize that acid, we maximize Ganoderma's efficacy within the body. It's so safe that pregnant women can take it, and I say they should take it. If you go back to the picture of my family, my beautiful daughter-in-law, my beautiful daughter, both took multiple doses throughout their entire pregnancy. Very smooth pregnancies, great deliveries, beautiful, healthy children who continue to thrive. And by the way, they still get Ganoderma daily through mother's milk. For years, I've talked about the Magnificent Seven. I tell people if you want to be healthy, you need to eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right every single day. And Ganoderma actually enhances every one of these processes. So when we look at eating right, the Global Nutrition Report says every single country on planet Earth suffers from malnutrition. So very fortunately, we have fewer and fewer starving children, but we have an increasingly starved population. So what do we mean by that? Well, we've depleted the soil. We know that it takes 30 elements to grow healthy plants, animals, and humans. Scientists found out a long time ago that it only took 3 elements to grow a big plant: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So I always ask my students, if you take 30 elements out for every 3 you put back in, what will eventually happen? And we know it. We'll deplete the soil, and that's what we've done around the world. When we talk about nutrition, our shakes have a wonderful grass-fed organic whey base. And this gentleman, Frank, actually lost 100 pounds in 10 months, drinking 2 shakes a day and eating a very sensible meal. When it comes to drinking right, we know that our planet is 2/3 water, our body is 2/3 water, 2/3 of that water should be inside of our cells. And I have done over 10,000 hydration assessments on patients in every different type of category, every demographic, from child to geriatric to elite, and everything in between. And what I've learned is that most people are dehydrated. Now, not to the point where they're going to die from dehydration, but they don't have optimal hydration to be healthy. So we start out life at about 100% water, and as time passes on, we get less and less water. As I've said at seminars, we start out like a grape, and then ultimately we end up like a raisin. We want to stay a grape for as long as we can. So cells are mostly water and are surrounded by water. And we know that water follows particles in human physiology. So What kind of particles do we want inside of our cell? Well, that would be nutrients, and Ganoderma is loaded with nutrients. And what type of particles are outside the cell? Well, that's cellular waste products. Those are toxins. And by the way, we know that Ganoderma is really good to help the body to eliminate waste. When it comes to thinking right, we know that the brain is the most nutrient dependent, energy dependent, stress vulnerable, and toxin vulnerable system within the body. So lots of medical studies that show and support that concept. And there are 60 specific studies on Ganoderma in the brain. And here's the summary. Ganoderma is really good for the brain. When we start talking about stress, we know that the brain at rest gets a lot of blood flow. In fact, it represents 2% of the body mass, but uses 20% of the body's oxygen. So under stress, the brain loses some of its circulation and it goes to the muscles so that you can fight or flee. And what happens is your higher level thought processes decline. Your joy centers don't have any reason to, be firing and be happy because you're thinking about fighting and fleeing. So Ganoderma, it's called the herb of spiritual potency, and the medical literature supports all three concepts, that it calms the body, the mind, and the spirit. By the way, I put the PubMed citations there. So if you're curious, you can put that in your Google search engine and look at that very specific study. When it comes to moving right, we know that it takes energy to move, and Ganoderma, I'll use the technical lingo here, increases the production of mitochondrial electron transport complexes. So what does that mean? Mitochondria are little powerhouses within the cell. They make 94.4% of human energy, and Ganoderma helps them to work better, and therefore it increases our energy. So there are elite athletes all around the planet that are enjoying Ganoderma consistently because they feel a benefit for their body, for their training, for their sport. When it comes to sleeping right, I'm a student of peak performance, and Anders Ericsson was considered the world's foremost authority. He wrote the book Peak, and he talked about the best of the best in any type of field. And here's what he found. The best of the best slept an average of 8.6 hours each night. So if you use your brain and body more, you probably want to rest your brain and body more. But one of my favorite statements is that a great day starts the night before. So we will all benefit from a great night's sleep. So people who consume Ganoderma fall asleep faster, sleep deeper longer, and wake up more refreshed. There are a number of studies that show Ganoderma's sleep benefits. When it comes to poop right, we're not just talking about bowel function, we're talking about all detoxification, all elimination. That would include the lungs, the skin, the liver, the kidneys, the bowel, even the lymphatic system. And the World Health Organization says that toxins are responsible for 1/4 of all deaths on the planet. And most of us know that this has become a progressively toxic world. There's over 80,000 registered toxic chemicals in our environment, and they are associated with a lot of challenges that we'd rather not have. So here are 4 different studies that show that Ganoderma is really good at helping the body to clear some very severe toxins. This toxin is a severe brain toxin. This is a severe liver toxin. This one's a pancreas toxin, and this one is a neural tube toxin. And yes, Ganoderma is effective against all of them. When it comes to talking right, we know that we're made up of trillions and trillions of cells. Every cell is potentially in communication with every other cell at every moment in time, and we want to have good communication for good health. And we know that the major communication throughout the body exists with enzyme and hormone function, and that is all dependent on the acid-alkaline balance within the body. And if the body gets too off in any direction, which by the way, it usually becomes too acid, then that alteration in pH impairs our cells and organs' ability to communicate. So I like this statement. Ganoderma is widely held to be the most alkaline food in the entire world. Here's a very specific study on anti-aging from the journal Aging and Disease, and I'll read this to you. It says Ganoderma lucidum as an elixir has been around for thousands of years. Studies revealing its effects of lifespan extension are only the tip of the iceberg. And there's 46 different studies on Ganoderma lucidum and longevity. And how does it use its anti-aging properties or exercise that? Well, it's antioxidation, immunomodulation, that's a very important term, immunomodulation, and anti-neurodegeneration. When we look at Ganoderma and the immune system, 232 different studies. And again, I'm going to look at this term immunomodulation because sometimes our immune system has too much attack on foreign particles, too much on things within our body. Sometimes there's too little defense on things from outside the body, sometimes too little defense within. Whatever the imbalance, Ganoderma helps to create more balance within the immune system. This study shows that there are 430 unique molecules within Ganoderma, and 79 of them have antimicrobial and anti-parasite type activity. The first book that I wrote a foreword to, and right now I think I'm coming up on about 35 different books I've written the foreword to, was a book called Herbal Virtues. And here's the first line. There's a synergy in nature that cannot be duplicated and cannot be isolated. And that is the magic of the wisdom of nature. So when you look at these 430 unique molecules and then all of the other nutrition, they all work together to create a synergistic effect. And you cannot replicate that using only one compound. When you look at the term oxidation, it's like the process of rusting. And this is a beautiful young face, and we see that it becomes progressively oxidized here, and we could see that that face looks older. So oxidation is synonymous with the term aging. 359 different PubMed citations on Ganoderma and its antioxidant type status. And this is from the National Institutes of Health. And here's what it says. The fact that the reishi mushroom has 10 times more antioxidants by weight than other types of mushrooms or plants is very impressive. Einstein called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. And that means if you get a little better, a little better, a little better, those little better steps add up to one another, and progressively you get better and better each day. So I like to think that coffee with Ganoderma in it is compounding health at its best. So if we look here in the US at 3.3 cups of coffee per day times 365 days a year, over 1,200 cups a year, over 1,200 doses that can move the body towards better health in the body, mind, and spirit. So remember, we can say that our coffee is healthier. Oddly enough, we can't say that it's healthy, but we can point people to the medical literature. We'll go back to our FDA disclaimer. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And I will wrap up with these words. I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful.